If you have not seen it yet, this is the new PSYKER talent tree. Up here in the top, we have all of our toughness regenerating talents. Right here is a new melee regenerating talent. This is really nice. Killing an enemy with weak spot kills 15% over 3 seconds, so 5% per second. And then 2.5% toughness instantly when you get a hit on any swing. So you can't get it more than once per swing, but every time you swing is pretty nice as long as you're connecting with enemies. We've got Perilous Combustion, Battle Meditation with a slight buff for quelling peril on kill and peril generation. And then Perfect Timing is now universal. It's all damage, not just warp damage like it was before. Assail is the exact same, but Smite has its +1 jumps like sort of wrapped into the ability itself. So that's really nice. You can save a point. You don't have to choose that as well in order to get the full effect. Brain Rupture, its kinetic flare node has been reworked so that it is no longer just random once it's off that cooldown. It has a cooldown of 12 seconds, and if you hit a monstrosity, specialist, or elite with it, it will guaranteed proc the next time you touch them with a single bullet or whatever it is. So this is really nice guaranteed damage now. Then we have a toughness damage reduction, which is always nice to have some extra TDR in the PSYKER, who's generally pretty frail. Out here we've got Channel Force, which has seen a little bit of a rework. I think what did they do here? I can't say off the top of my head. I think they nerfed that first part. I don't know. But yeah, they got Soul Drinker, which has been changed. It gives toughness over time instead of instant toughness when you kill an enemy with Soul Blaze. Because this was like instantly filling people's health bars back if you killed like a big horde. But I think this is generally going to be better in like most uses. Malefic Momentum, the same as it was before. Actually, no, it's not. This used to be 4 damage stacking 5 times, or it was 5% damage stacking 4 times, as I want to say. Lightning Speed, there it is. There's your melee attack speed. I like that it's only 1 point from the center here, so pretty much everybody can get this stuff. And this is the best part about this tree, is that it doesn't take any extra points to go all the way out to both sides to get those ridiculous talents that are only for like one sort of build. You can use staves and get melee attack speed now. You don't have to like completely invest in one direction or another. Then we've got Mind and Motion, which has been changed to work on both quelling or reloading, which is really good. Crack of Bone and Warp Splitting. So we have our melee triangle right here, and then over here, this is our Flame Staff or like Staff triangle with Soul Blaze. So Wildfire, Empiric Shock, which works really well with the Flame Staff, and Soul Drinker, all Soul Blaze stuff. So that's great. Then we have an extra 5% crit chance. So the baseline for PSYKERs now is going to be 12.5% crit chance because they have 7.5 off the start. So they 1 in 8 chance that you're going to get a crit on any of your attacks with PSYKER, which is really cool. Kinetic Presence, Seer's Presence, and Prescience. Wow, I just realized how this is like the weirdest naming convention ever for these. Kinetic Presence, Seer's Presence, and Prescience. Okay, they couldn't come up with something different for that, I guess. But yeah, the auras are all exactly the same as they were before, so no changes there. There was a nerf to Psychonetic's aura. So as you saw in the last 2 videos, Psychonetic's aura was nerfed, or just because all those cooldown reduction auras are being nerfed. And then we have Immaterial Focus over here, a new node that gives you critical stun immunity on critical peril and for 4 seconds after you leave critical peril, and 10% damage resistance just flat, which is nice. One with the Warp, which is returning. And then over here we've got Empathic Evasion for those critical hits give you dodging, and Anticipation, which gives you extra dodges. And then Just a Dream is a new talent that when you're below critical peril, 25% of your damage taken is converted into peril. Over here for Venting Shriek, we have one new node called Warp Rupture. Warp Rupture increases the damage taken and the damage dealt by enemies that get hit by the Venting Shriek by 10% for 8 seconds. Telekind Shield has a little bit of a boost to the bolstered shield pain. This now has a 35-second cooldown instead of a 45-second cooldown. I don't think it's still anywhere near as good as the bubble is for the PSYKER, but hey, it's something in the right direction. Scryer's Gaze now has an inbuilt 20% toughness damage reduction, which used to be one of its little minor nodes out here. That's now been made part of the ability, and it replenishes 2.5% toughness per second. So that's really, really huge. And then this ability down here has had an additional 30% quelling speed added to it. So the rest of these are the same as you've always had for Scryers. But this represents a really big boost for Scryers, because now you're quite tanky when you've got it active, plus all these other talents. So that's a quality boost for PSYKERs there. Down here we have the melee PSYKER modifier, and then True Aim. All these are the exact same as you've seen before, but they're just reconfigured with a movement speed boost in the middle, so that's nice. Disrupt Destiny is all the exact same. Over here, going on this left side, we've got Solidity, same. Puppet Master went up by 25%, so Coherency is bigger, and Empiric Resolve is the same. But Penetration of the Soul got reworked. It used to be 10% rending when you were over 75% peril. Now it is 20% rending, which scales on peril. So at 100% peril, you'll have 20 rending, and at 0, you'll have 0. But that's just generally a big win, because this is way more usable than just that 75 peril and over. And then Warp Siphon has only seen one change, which is that it used to have 6 nodes down here, and they took one of those out and put it into the base, which is that if you just take this base node now, you'll get 4% base damage for every stack of warp charge you have, which is good. Up here in the center, we've got Vulnerable Mines, which is a new node. This has just been lifted directly from the veteran tree, and this node makes it, you know, kind of feasible, a little bit more feasible to kill Ogrins and monstrosities, since PSYKER struggles with those enemies. And it's a nice node. I think everyone will probably end up picking this because everyone picks Warp Rider anyway. You know, 20% damage is a lot on PSYKER, and these are the targets that he struggles with, so that'll be good. Down here we've got Peril Generation, or minus Peril Generation, and then Warp Ghost, which is a new node. I think there's definitely something to Melee PSYKER. Melee PSYKER has now an additional 2 stamina and 25% toughness replenishment. All it does to get that trade-off is it loses 80% passive quelling, but just don't passive quell, manually quell, and you'll be okay, right? So this is going to be really great, especially when you consider that Scryer's Gaze manually quells 50% of your peril when you activate it, and you get extra quelling by taking this node right here. So Warp Ghost isn't that bad a trade-off at all for basically like more stats than a Curio would give you. And then Empowered Psionics is all exactly the same. I of course saved this node right here for the last because Crystalline Will has received rework, which gives 100% overload explosion and 25% overload explosion radius. Overloading through Perils of the Warp no longer knocks you down, but you still take the appropriate corruption damage. If the explosion kills an elite enemy, however, you don't take any corruption damage. So with this ability here, there is now going to be an army of kamikaze psykers out there trying to blow themselves up and take at least one elite with them. I tried to do this all stream, and let me tell you, it didn't work great. But maybe you'll be the one to make it work. And yeah, this is gonna be really funny to see a ton of psykers playing this tomorrow, because that is a very, very funny skill. And I'm glad they made that rework, because what this can be at a very high level of play is when you're surrounded by a bunch of enemies and you just casting, there could be situations in which you just want to take that damage and keep casting. And this might allow you to not take any damage and get a full vent for free and do a bunch of damage AoE around you. It's pretty dang good for like purely vented, like, you know, pure staff psykers. I think you would definitely take it on many PSYKER like staff builds, right? So anyway, that is everything for the PSYKER, and I hope you're excited to play it, guys.